Folks, great things are happening in Israel today, and no one knows that better than Israel's former ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren. He's currently a leading member of the Israeli Knesset and a deputy minister in the office of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I sat down with Deputy Minister Oren recently at the Knesset in Jerusalem, where we discussed Israel's strengthening relationship with the United States and how it's gaining the upper hand in its struggle against anti-Israel forces around the world. Take a look. Deputy Minister, thanks for joining us in your neck of the woods here in Jerusalem.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was so used to spending some time with you in Washington as well when you were ambassador to the U.S., top diplomat to the U.S. You've written about that experience eloquently in your great book, Ally. What is your take now on the U.S.-Israel relationship, maybe reforging ties?
The Obama administration wasn't hostile to the state of Israel. I wouldn't say they're anti-Israel, but they did view Israel more as part of the problem rather than part of the solution. And the Trump administration, if I had to point at one major difference, they view Israel as part of the solution. The solution not just for the questions of peace, but for security, for the entire Middle East. They look at a Middle East that has completely fallen apart, and there's one country that is standing strong, democratic, unreservedly pro-American. That's the state of Israel. We saw after 2011, the outbreak of the Arab Spring, Arabs were killing Arabs in Syria, rioting in Egypt, the entire Middle East coming apart, and they had nothing at all to do with the state of Israel.
ISIS had nothing to do with Israel.
Yeah. And nothing to do with settlements. And we know that there was an Arab-Israeli conflict for 50 years before this first settlement was built. And then we know after that, Israel made repeated offers to make peace to the Palestinians in 2000 and 2008. The Palestinians turned it down, not because of settlements. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, Israel was willing to go back to the negotiating table with the Palestinians without preconditions at any time. And for the last 9 years now, the Palestinian Authority has refused to negotiate with us.
That's right. Another issue, obviously, was Iran. Huge. Another issue of difference, the Iran deal, which you spoke out against so eloquently, Deputy Minister. Tell us about the Iran situation now. I think a lot of people have been lulled to sleep saying, well, we have this deal and Iran is sticking to the letter of the law, so to speak. For an American audience in particular, talk about why Iran remains such a grave threat, not only for Israel, but for the West.
At the end of 8-9 years from now, Iran will get its entire nuclear program back online. It'll have legitimacy, and it can enrich uranium to a military-grade strength within a very short period of time, enough for 100 or maybe 200 bombs and nuclear bombs. The nuclear deal doesn't stop that. It actually paves Iran's path to the bomb. And the nuclear deal establishes no connection whatsoever between the deal and the nuclear program and Iranian behavior. So Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terror. Iran openly called for the destruction of the state of Israel. It's a genocidal regime. Iran is complicit in the murder of 500,000 Syrians. It's trying to establish air bases, ports in Lebanon, Syria to create a land bridge between Iran and the Mediterranean. It's taken over Iraq. It's supporting Hamas to the west of us. It's in Yemen to the south of us. Every which way, Iran is aiming to take over the Middle East. And the Iran nuclear deal does nothing to stop that. On the contrary, it frees up hundreds of billions of dollars in sanction release and makes this regime very wealthy.
Yeah, and I think of that ballistic missile stockpile that Iran is developing as well, Deputy Minister. And I think of Iran's proxy, Hezbollah. During the 2006 war, obviously, against Hezbollah, you spent time in the north. Talk about the severity of that Hezbollah threat, over 100,000 rockets and missiles aimed at every inch of Israel. How severe is that Hezbollah threat?
It's recently a no less objective source to the New York Times said Hezbollah has become the second largest military force in the Middle East after Israel's. And this is the development of the last few years. And we have much of that we have to thank to the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, this is not just a terrorist group. This is a terrorist army.
And they are fighting in Syria. They are advising in Iraq. They're advising in Yemen. And meanwhile, Iran continues to develop, as you said, an intercontinental ballistic missile capacity, ICBMs. They don't need an ICBM to hit the state of Israel. They need an ICBM to hit where? Washington, D.C.
The Great Satan.
Right, the Great Satan. It's New York, it's California. Now, we've seen how the North Koreans have developed that type of ability to hit Denver, to hit the west coast of the United States. There was a report in the British news today that Iran and North Korea, British officials saying that North Korea have worked far more closely than even the British thought. And this is just the beginning. This connection between Iran and North Korea is going to come out more and more.
Obviously, the 50-year anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem, 70-year anniversary of the rebirth of the State of Israel. As a historian, you've written several best-selling books, a lot with a history focus. What does that mean to you?
We have a lot of anniversaries this year, and some very, very happy anniversaries indeed. The Balfour Declaration, 1917, was the declaration in which the British Empire, which had just defeated the Turks and liberated this area of the world, promised the land of Israel to the Jewish people as a national home. And in many ways, it was the height of our diplomacy. It was the first time the international community recognized the right of a Jewish people to a homeland in our tribal lands, the land of Israel. And that was, in many ways, the high watermark of our diplomacy. The partition resolution in 1947 divided this country into two states, an Arab state and a Jewish state. The Arabs rejected it. They went to war against the Jewish state. We won, they lost. That's why there is no Arab state there today. And the 67 War. 67 War was the reunification of Jerusalem, which had been divided by Israel's War of Independence in 1948, and that and also gave us secure borders. It gave us peace, ultimately with Egypt and Jordan, because we were able to trade territory for peace. And it also gave us the strategic alliance with the United States. Israel won the Six-Day War without a single American bullet. And after the war, it was only then that American policymakers decided to make a strategic alliance with us. And that has become the deepest and most multifaceted alliance which the United States has had with any country in its post-World War II period.
Talk about why you do what you do, why you made Aliyah, and why you're serving this vital role for the State of Israel.
Well, I grew up in a period of great unrest in the United States, the civil rights movement, the protest movements. I also grew up in a working-class neighborhood where I was the only Jewish kid, and I was often the victim of anti-Semitism. My father and his brother had both landed on Normandy Beach, and they had liberated a concentration camp. They took pictures of that concentration camp. I have them on my phone. Every time I'd come home bloodied from a fight with anti-Semites, my father would show me the pictures of the concentration camp and say, "You see, that's why we need a strong State of Israel." And it had a big impact on me. I started coming here when I was a kid. I was a farmer. I was a cowboy. So a cowboy, I used to ride up cattle on horseback on the Golan Heights, which was wild. And I just always thought of myself as being extraordinarily fortunate to be alive in the time of my people's history where we did have this state, where we can sit in this institution, we're in the Knesset here, and have a sovereign flag that represents a strong people with a formidable army.
That's right. It's a modern-day miracle.
It is indeed.
Deputy Minister, thank you so much.
Okay.
Up next, in the shifting sands of the Middle East, Israel is gaining some important new allies. A top official in Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party joins us to explain. Don't move.